The most successful tyrant in human history ruled for 3,500 years. He crushed every rebellion, was worshipped as a god by trillions, and considered his tyranny a gift. He could do all of this because he had read the whole of history and noticed something in it that no one else would face. The timeline of Dune is usually told as a chronicle. This empire rose, that emperor fell, 15,000 years. Thank you for watching. I think the chronicle misses the point. Because if you lay the whole history out and stop looking at the names, a pattern surfaces, the same event, repeating at larger and larger scale, wearing a different mask each time. Humanity finds something that promises to carry its burdens. A machine, an institution, a savior. Humanity hands it everything, and the thing it trusted becomes the thing it has to burn. That's the argument I'm making today. The entire Dune saga is one mistake, repeated for 15,000 years, and the only ruler who ever broke the cycle had to become the worst monster in the story to do it. By the end, I'll show you why. One note before the ledger opens, because the record demands it. Frank Herbert didn't write an encyclopedia. He wrote histories told through appendices in universe scholars and the propaganda of the winners, and those sources disagree by design. Where the books are solid, I'll treat them as solid. Where they go quiet or contradict each other, I'll tell you. And the prequels and sequels written after Herbert's death are a separate continuity. Tonight we walk the 15,000 years Herbert himself built. That's the deal on this channel. Begin at the wound the whole universe is built around. More than 10,000 years before Paul Atreides, humanity did the most human thing imaginable. It built machines to think so that it wouldn't have to. The books give us almost nothing about what those centuries looked like. And the silence is deliberate, because the little they do give us is worse than any battle scene. A Reverend Mother puts it to Paul in a single sentence at the very start of Dune. And notice what it actually says. Men didn't lose a war to the machines. Men handed their thinking over willingly. And that surrender simply let other men who owned the machines, enslave them. The nightmare in Dune's past isn't robot armies, it's dependence. The machines didn't conquer humanity, convenience did. The correction, when it came, was not a policy. It was a jihad, a cataclysm so distant that the books leave most of its history buried under legend. What survived it is a commandment, burned into every remaining faith. Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind. Humanity didn't regulate its mistake. It made the mistake unthinkable, a sin forever. And here is the first turn of the pattern, the part the chronicles skim. Destroying the machines didn't free anyone. It left a vacuum shaped exactly like a machine, and human beings poured themselves into it. Mentats, men trained to compute like the forbidden devices. The Spacing Guild, navigators mutated into living star charts. The Bene Gesserit, an order that set out to engineer what no machine would now be allowed to build. Humanity burned its tools, and then began, very quietly, turning people into tools. Remember that move, you'll see it again. Out of the ashes, an empire, and one battle, at a place called Corrino, decides who wears the crown. The winners take the battle's name, House Corrino. They will hold the throne for 10,000 years, 10,000. Rome managed a fraction of that. So the interesting question isn't how the Imperium rose, it's how anything holds still for 100 centuries. The answer it was built to. The Guild holds an absolute monopoly on space travel. No one moves without permission. The Great Convention bans atomics against human targets. No house can end another quickly. The Falfreluches lock every human being into a caste, a place for every man and every man in his place. This is not a civilization that has stopped growing. It's a civilization designed not to grow. 3 institutions balanced against each other so that nothing can ever change. After the machines, humanity's second surrender was to stability itself. Safety at the price of a future. And underneath the frozen surface, the most patient organization in human history was running a project. The Bene Gesserit had spent 90 generations breeding bloodlines toward a single being, the Kwisatz Haderach, a mind that could see down every path, the human machine to end all machines. And they salted the ground ahead of him, the Missionaria Protectiva, an engineering corps for religion, planting tailored legends and prophecies on frontier worlds centuries in advance. so that one day, on any backwater in the Imperium, a Bene Gesserit in danger could step into a myth that was manufactured for her. Hold that cynicism in your mind. On one desert planet, it's about to detonate. Arrakis was never supposed to matter, a waste world at the edge of the map until humanity discovered that its sands held the one substance the whole frozen empire ran on. The spice extends life. The spice lets the guild's navigators see safe paths between the stars. No spice, no travel, no Imperium. The most powerful civilization in history had a single point of failure, and it was a desert. And the desert had already made its own answer to empire. The Fremen came out of generations of persecution, a wandering people enslaved, hunted, and hardened world after world, until Arrakis, the planet that kills the unprepared, became the first place that fit them. An imperial planetologist named Kynes gave them one more thing, a dream: water the desert, a paradise 300 years away, built in secret, one catchment at a time. The books give Kynes an ending almost too on the nose to invent. The man who dreamed of taming Arrakis dies alone in the open desert, killed by the planet itself. And his dream doesn't die with him. It waits, wrapped in exactly the kind of planted prophecy the Bene Gesserit had seeded there centuries before. Dry tinder arranged in a ring, waiting for a spark. The spark arrives in the year 10,091, and the chronicle version you know. The Atreides are handed Arrakis as a trap, the Harkonnens and the Emperor spring it, the Duke dies, the boy escapes into the desert. But watch what actually happens next, because this is the pattern's cruelest turn yet. Jessica was ordered to bear a daughter. Out of love, she bore a son, and the Bene Gesserit's 90-generation project arrived one generation early, in a bloodline they didn't control, on the one planet where their own planted prophecies were waiting like loaded weapons. Paul doesn't fight the machinery of religion, he inherits it. The Bene Gesserit's old myths and survival prophecies give him something more dangerous than any army. A world already prepared to believe. The Fremen see their Messiah. Paul, who can see the future, watches himself become it and sees where it leads. A holy war in his name, spreading across the universe like fire through dry grass. He calls it his terrible purpose. As his prescience grows, he searches desperately for a future where it doesn't happen. There isn't one. He takes the throne and the Jihad comes anyway, and the third surrender completes. Humanity gave itself to machines, then to a frozen order, and now, with total sincerity, to a living God. Billions march under his name into the dark. Herbert then does the thing no other saga of this size has ever done. He hands his hero total victory and makes him sit in it. 12 years after taking the throne, Paul looks at what has been done in his name and does the arithmetic, and the books let us hear the tally. Tens of billions dead, whole planets sterilized, hundreds of worlds broken, ancient faiths erased. He compares his own record to the great killers of ancient history, and finds that, by the standards of his empire, they barely register. And prescience, the gift that made him a god, turns out to be the tightest cage in the story. A man who has seen the future is trapped in it, walking a corridor he already knows. Paul sees the shape of one exit, a future that might save the species, so long and so cruel that walking it means ceasing to be human at all. His son will later give that path a name, the Golden Path. And here is where I land on Paul Atreides. His defining act isn't winning the throne, it's the refusal. He cannot pay that price. Blinded, broken, he walks into the open desert like any freeman whose life has ended, leaving the empire, the religion, and the bill to his children. The chronicles call what comes next a succession. It wasn't. It was an inheritance, and one of his children opened the account. His son Leto looks down the same corridor his father fled and walks in. On the run in the desert, he lets the sand trout and the larval form of the great worms fuse with his living skin. It makes him inhuman, faster than a man, nearly unkillable, and beginning a metamorphosis that will take 35 centuries to finish. Paul refused the price. Leto pays it in full, and then rules for 3,500 years as something between an emperor, a worm, and a god. Now, the question that sorts every Dune reader. Why? Leto had read the whole ledger we just walked through. Machines, empire, messiah, every era, humanity herded behind a savior. every savior ending in fire. His answer, the golden path, is the darkest idea in the saga. The cycle cannot be broken by a better ruler, only by a ruler so crushing for so long that humanity develops a permanent, bone-deep hunger to be free of rulers altogether. He strangles travel between the stars. He confiscates the future. He makes the universe stand still for 3,000 years, deliberately breeding into the species an unbearable need to scatter where no power can ever find it again. And the proof that he meant it is how it ends. Over centuries, his own breeding program produces Siona, a human being invisible to prescient sight. No oracle will ever see her descendants coming, and no single vision of the future will ever again hold all of humanity inside it. Leto lets this weapon aim itself at him. When Siona and Duncan Idaho bring the bridge down and drop him into the river, and the worm flesh tears apart into sand trout, and the god dies, that is not the plan failing, that is the plan completing. 3,500 years of tyranny, engineered to end in the one assassination that sets the species free. He is the only ruler in the entire timeline who took power in order to make his kind of power impossible. His death breaks the dam. The empire falls into the famine times, and then comes the explosion he spent millennia preparing for, the scattering. Humanity pours outward into the uncharted dark in numbers no empire could count, beyond the reach of any throne, any guild, any oracle. The lesson holds. No single ruler will ever hold all of humanity again. But Herbert was too honest to end on a cure. 15 centuries later, something comes back out of the dark, the Honored Matres, descendants of the scattering, burning the old empire world by world, humanity's own children, returning as the fire this time. And in that war, the unthinkable finally happens. Arrakis itself, Dune, the planet the whole story orbits, is obliterated, reduced to a ruin. The last survivors of the old order escape with a girl who can speak to worms and a single sandworm, and on a hidden world called Chapter House, a new desert begins to grow. The saga's last published image is the first one, starting over. Sand, spreading. And there, the record stops. Herbert died with the story mid-sentence. Chapter House ends on a cliffhanger, the author never resolved. Continuations exist, written from his notes by other hands, but they are another continuity, another argument. The history Herbert himself wrote ends with the empire in ashes, the future unwritten, and the desert coming back. So tally the ledger. Humanity trusted thinking machines and burned them, trusted a frozen empire and it bred its own destroyer, trusted a messiah and got a jihad, was ruled by a god for 3,000 years, and the god's entire purpose was to make sure it never happens again. Herbert warned his readers about exactly this repeatedly and in print, the danger of charismatic leaders and how badly we want to hand ourselves to one. Paul was never meant to be a simple hero, and Herbert spent 3 books showing the readers who loved him the bill. Which leaves the question the fandom has fought over for 50 years, and I'll tell you where I land. Leto II bought humanity's permanent freedom with 35 centuries of engineered tyranny, trillions of lives spent as insurance against extinction. For me, the terrible thing about the tyrant is that inside Herbert's universe, the books keep vindicating him. But if the only way to save humanity is 3,000 years of a god's boot, I'm not sure that's a species I'd call saved. That tension, I think, is the whole point of the saga. So make your case in the comments. Was the golden path worth it, or was the tyrant just the biggest liar in a universe full of them? And if you want the full story of how a boy chose to become the worm, the strangest, darkest book in the saga, that one's next. The archive is open.